Welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook, got Coach Dub, got Ian Boyd. It is another edition of IT Live coming to you on Thursday. It is the bye week. There are no bye weeks here on Inside Texas. If you're here, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. Of course, head to InsideTexas.com. You can join using the link in our description. Today, we'll talk a little bit about what's going on with Texas in the deep passing game. We'll also go over something our guy Nash Talks Texas just wrote about over on Inside Texas. Will the Longhorns have a running back reach 1,000 yards? Of course, we'll get to your questions and comments, and we will also go over this week in the SEC as we do every single week. So, Ian, what's it called? How do I phrase this? The term of the week in Texas Longhorns football is ADOT, and it's kind of been beaten down, and people kind of beat up Quinn Ewers over it. But you wrote something on Inside Texas and tried to look for an answer of why that ADOT's down. We have Sark's comments about like tell the safeties to move up or something like that. But what did your view of all 22 film tell you when trying to find an answer for why the deep passing game was struggling?
Well, all the short stuff is open. A lot of it is wide open. When Texas, nobody had a problem with it when Ewers was 17 for 19 and every check down and bubble screen was picking up, 10 yards a pop. It was only when the offense stalled that it was like, wait, the average depth of target is bad. The offense is garbage. They do need to get the ball down the field. That is going to be important. But when you watch the all 22 against Vanderbilt, there's nothing open deep. It wasn't an issue of like Quinn Ewers is refusing to pull the trigger or refusing to step up or something like that, which was the case at times against, Oklahoma and Georgia. Oklahoma, he was bailing out of the pocket. Georgia, he didn't want to step up consistently until the second half. But against Vanderbilt, he was seeing covered receivers downfield and then getting the ball to the check down quickly, which is what you want to do because you want to get it there before they realize they're going to throw it and your guy still has space to make a move.
And you mentioned one of the things that really made that difficult was match 3 coverage from Vanderbilt. And, it just kind of clicked with me. Who worked at Notre Dame with Clark Lee? Pretty sure Terry Joseph did. Remember when we were talking about Terry Joseph's expertise when it comes to coverage? Probably match 3. So that just clicked for me. Makes a lot of sense. Why does that break down these deep routes? Like why, or maybe another way, why doesn't Sark have an answer for, okay, we can still pass it deep against this coverage?
Because the way they were playing it, like a lot of their plays, both safeties are like 12 yards deep at the snap, even 14 yards deep. And then one drops deep to the post, and then the other one kind of stays still or drops down a little bit to play a curl flat zone or a hook zone. And their corners would play. Basically, their deep defenders would play back, keep everything in front of them, and then maintain eyes on the route combinations. So like the post is pretty much never there because the post safety was on the post. And then the deep over routes that Texas is always running that we've all seen Quinn hit a million times, right, to the guy running across the middle. They were trading off and picking that route up where they were looking for it and they were finding it. So your post isn't there. Your over route is getting picked up and that's not there. And then to throw this combination that Sark loves so much where it's like post over, and then you punish the deep safety for whichever one he doesn't cover. The other guys would cover the over, the safety would cover the post, and then you're usually, to buy time to throw that, you're blocking with 6 or 7 guys. Mm-hmm. You have one other option, which is the check down or like a scramble. And so if their linebackers are dropping deep and their deep guys are the over, that just leaves the check down.
And I'm one of those people who, if you kind of have to view yards like you view them on the stat sheet, like 10 yards is 10 yards is 10 yards. And would you like the 31-yard pass? They got one. Would you like more? Of course. But if it's not there, Coach, is this one of those things where we talk about Stark just needing to be patient and live with what's available?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you got to be patient and take what's available. I know you want to take the top off every defense and go get the deep ball, the long ball. Everybody loves to see it. But honestly, you got to be patient. And most teams in today's era, they want you to be patient. See if you can be patient. That's the key, because they're depending on you to make a mistake, because everybody wants to score quickly. And when you can't, it feels like a struggle. But if you're really, really patient and you understand the offense, hey, I'm controlling the clock, I'm controlling the game, I wouldn't care if I was getting 10 yards a pop. But you got to be mentally locked in and say that's okay. I can live with beating them by 1,000 cuts, you know what I mean? Versus just chopping off their head, honestly.
And I remember Sark has talked about, like, he the way he phrases it, he's like, I chewed out the play caller, or like the head coach chewed out the play caller or something like that, when talking about like trying not to be stubborn. And we've seen what stubbornness looks like, and it was Oklahoma State 2 years ago, and now we see what I guess patience looks like, but it's just so these extremes are so jarring.
They do also they could try other route combinations down the field.
Yeah.
Like they were pretty vanilla against Vanderbilt. Like if teams are playing with a cushion and trying to keep you in front of them and read everything, you can try curl routes, post curl routes. They hit one of those when they actually tried it. You could try to spread them out and throw underneath for not a check down, but like maybe hit a slant or a stick or something. Or you can try double moves. Like how well do they stay on your guy if he's executing a double move? If your guys are just running in lines that are predictable patterns, it's a lot easier to stay over the top of that. If you're trying to like maintain leverage on a receiver and keep an eye on the over coming from the other side of the field, and then your receiver runs like a hitch and go or something, then it complicates it.
Yeah.
So they were pretty vanilla. And I don't think that they were too. I think that Sark was happy to keep stuff off film.
So, Coach, you can help me on this one, but it's week 8.
Yeah.
Like what's the point of keeping stuff off film? You've played 8 games. You've played the 3 best teams. Well, 3 of the 4 best teams on your schedule.
Yeah.
Like, is there a benefit to keeping stuff off film at this point?
I mean, I'm sure there's some things and concepts he hasn't worked just yet, but maybe he doesn't feel confident running. Maybe it didn't look good in practice. Maybe the percentages were not high, and so he didn't want to call it or put it on film because he just didn't practice it well. So he went with what he was comfortable with, and a lot of times that's what most coaches do during the week. Whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you're successful with during practice or you ran through the season, you're going to keep that same thing. You may make it look different with a different formation, but you're just going to run things that your guys can execute at a high level. And so when teams take that away, you do got to adjust. And sometimes you just got to trust the guys on the field to say, we're going to run this concept. We may not have been good at it, but we're going to run it this game and kind of throw it out there and see how it works. But I think that's the issue, honestly, just running what the guys do well.
I like this one from Jasper. It seems like our counter run game has been really good. Why don't we do more of that and play action off of it? They run play action off of counter a pretty good amount. Like when you see Hayden Connor or DJ Campbell replace, may not be the technical term, but like become the left guard or the left tackle, like the keys, stop me if I'm wrong on here, the linebackers are reading like, oh, the guard is taking this step. They read their feet or their hips to see like, oh, he's already on the move, so they're running a counter this way. But then, even though he's kind of softly getting to the point, like that first move is what fools them. So whenever you see the pulling guard and they still run a pass off of it, that's what they're doing. And that type of play predated Sark. Ian, are they good at running counter though? Because you had a pretty good grasp of the run game in a recent post this week.
They're pretty good. They ran it 5 times for like 50 yards, which sounds really good. But they had 2 20-yard runs on it, and one of them was like 3rd and 9, and they caught Vanderbilt trying to like drop everyone way back, like more than they were on other downs, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're good at it, but it's not a cure all. They need the zone run game to be better.
Mhm.
They had trouble with it wasn't even just like the safeties. Like Vanderbilt's linebackers played like 5 or 6 yards off the ball. So even when they took a step forward on play action, they would bail back into zone, and they were getting good drops. And the defensive line played a yard off the ball, so that Texas had trouble with their zone combos against them. There's a lot of stuff there that I don't think we're going to see that replicated to the same extent. We'll see.
Coach, I'm throwing this one your way. I think it's from C. Gaddis. Miss said Baxter, believe we showed we can run a run game we always intended to have with Gibson at Michigan. Gibson's, kind of been not very heavily utilized since then. We have our multiple reasons why, but I agree with that first sentence a lot and see what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, we miss Seb Baxter. I mean, he's a big back who can run through tackles. I'll be curious to see how much more inside zone or vertical running plays we would have with him there, because he can make a guy miss, run through the hole, or run through somebody, run through some of those arm tackles. I believe the guys we have now, you try to utilize their speed with the outside zone, and the offensive line is blocking that better. They're not really getting the biggest push going vertical with inside zone or anything else. So I believe we stay away from that because we just don't execute it as well. But Baxter, I believe, since he's a bigger body, you probably would try that and live with getting 2 to 3 yards maybe, and then maybe busting one later in the game. But I really don't understand. I don't really know what the thought is behind, not trying Gibson, other than maybe you don't trust him in pass protection versus the blitzes, because a lot of teams are starting to put pressure on us, bringing a nickel or something else. And so maybe we just don't trust a young freshman's eyes, where you could trust Seth Baxter, who's been in the program a little longer.
They haven't created the situations for Jarrett Gibson to be able to be relied on, I guess to say. Like we see, I know we all talked about it on this video a ton, that, Vandy just like auto blitzed a lot from the nickel. And okay, if you're running stuff where that happens, that's not a situation where you want Jarrett Gibson in. I know people have looked at like that Pro Football Focus grade. Yeah, he's 1 for 2, but that's the key thing. He's had 2 pass pro opportunities, and I think that says a lot about what the Longhorns think. But I mean, if you can get into situations where even him being on the field, being the tail that it is no problem. That's a sign of improvement on the offense. Guys, go ahead.
If you remember the timeline of the injuries, they came pretty late in fall camp. So like Baxter
I think Clark would have been ahead. I can't remember.
Yeah. So you're counting on Baxter. He gets hurt. And then your next guy up it sounded like it was more Clark than Gibson. So Clark is the one who had banked more reps. Clark was the guy that was going to, and then he gets hurt. And so I don't think Gibson got a lot of work in fall camp to nail down protections and things like everybody else had. And that's partly why he's been so, like, when he comes in, it's usually like the red zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're not worried about protection because every play is a run or an RPO or something.
Yeah, it's telegraphing, but that's what they have to do at this point. Guys, got to get a word in from our sponsor. That is Game Time. Download the Game Time app, redeem the code ON3ON3, and get $20 off your first purchase. One of the cool things about the app, I'm looking at it right now, is you can see what your view will look like. And not only that, you get the all-in pricing. So you get a view, you get the price after fees. And something I discovered was that the get in the door price for the Texas versus UConn men's basketball game, not too far from the get in the door price for the Texas versus Florida football game. They got a lot more than just that. You can get some great prices on comedians. You can get great prices on artists, Jelly Roll, Pink, Big X to plug, the Black Crows, Co Wetzel, all those guys making their way to Austin. If you want to watch pro football, whether that be in Arlington or in Houston, want to get to a Rockets, Spurs, Mavs game, whatever you're interested in, go to Game Time. You get to view where your seats will be. You get the all-in pricing, and you get the best in tickets. GameTime.co, promo code ON3, get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Remember, guys, it is game time. Anything else on the deep passing, or do we want to get to a little bit of a run game, a different run game topic?
Pretty well covers it. They need more versatility. They need more variety.
They do.
I guess, is there anything you can put on the wide receivers? I don't think we've talked about them, and you touched on it in your article. Is there anything that makes this like the wideouts' fault?
No, I don't think so, unless they're like not running routes because they haven't shown they can nail the timing in practice.
Yeah.
I don't really think that's it. I mean, Texas was in a commanding lead, and they only went to like the post curl and some other stuff when it was like, oh wait, we may need to score a few more points to put this away. You know, I don't think that it's the case that they don't have a bunch of answers waiting. I think it's that they just didn't want to take risks or show things that they didn't have to use. And I'll just, again, Quinn Ewers looked basically like himself to me. And now he's got the bye week. So I think, assuming that Michigan Quinn was not solely a product of months and months of preparation, I think we'll see more Michigan Quinn from here on out, unless he gets, hurt again.
One more thing on the passing game. If Florida bats down a Quinn Ewers pass on the first possession, I'll squirt lemon juice into my eyes. Well, that'll make viewing the rest of the game tough for you, UT Parking, but we'll have you covered on here for the post-game show. The other thing, Coach, when you're on the recruiting trail, how big is it to be able to point to a box score like we were talking about and stats and be like, this could be you, especially when they're gaudy stats like having a 1,000-yard back?
It's big because every kid wants to get to the next level and produce and say, hey, I could be that guy that produces be a 1,000-yard back. We kind of heard a little bit when Justin mentioned Osborne being at the Georgia games. Like, man, if that was me, I would have hit that hole and I would have took off, right? So kids can kind of envision themselves playing for the team that's recruiting them and being that guy who, gets the stats and gets the yards. So it's huge. It plays a big factor. It shows that your offense is explosive, that you do use your running back. So if you're a receiver getting up 1,000 yards, whatever the box score that you're looking at or stats you're looking at, it applies to your position. It's huge, man, because you want to be that guy. That's how you get drafted. You want putting up yards, you're producing. That's how you get to the next level past college. So it weighs a factor in recruiting.
One of the things that Steve Sarkisian always talks about, and we've poked a couple holes in it, but it's mostly true. He says, I've always had a 1,000-yard back. And at Texas, that's been true. Bijan, Jonathan Brooks. At Alabama for those 2 years, it was true. Najee Harris. Even in the NFL, he had in his 2 seasons there, they got to 1,000 total yards. The only time, and going back to Washington, had 1,000-yard rushers, Chris Polk, Bishop Sankey. The only time he hadn't had a 1,000-yard rusher or a back reach 1,000 total yards was in 2008 at USC, his last year ahead of heading to Washington. And even then, he had 3 guys get 600-plus yards, which is impressive.
Yeah.
But it looks like the dreams this year are on life support. With how Quinn, Travion Wisner, and Jaden Blue have fared so far. Wisner 77 carries, 409 yards. Blue 71 carries for 316 yards. Ian, I mean, do you think they get there even with I think they can get there with a playoff run, but in the regular season, it kind of seems like it's out of the question.
How many carries per game does Wisner average? Like 15?
How many carries per game does Wisner have average?
There's maybe especially since Oklahoma when he took over?
Let's see. Okay.
I need PFF back.
He has had double digit since starting with the Mississippi State game. So 13, 13, 15, 17 since Mississippi State.
Because he's averaging 5.3 yards per carry.
Yeah.
So he needs about 100 more carries over the rest of the season to get at that average to get to 1,000 yards. 100 carries would be 25 over the next 4, or it would be that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But you play an SEC championship game or you play 2 playoff games, you get to 5 or 6 games when that number goes to what? 20 a game, 18 a game at that rate. It's possible.
It is.
It is possible.
What do we view as the culprit of this, Charlie?
I really think just not finding the guy. And, you were trying to find out who the guy was earlier. You thought it would be Blue. But then Wiseman showed in the Oklahoma game that maybe he can be the guy, right? And then, Georgia happened. But I think he showed again versus Vandy that, hey, he can be the guy who can shoulder the carries and get the bulk of the carries and produce. And I think you probably see that kind of going forward. Maybe you can use him as the primary and use Blue as a change of pace back, which will give him that. And I think these next couple of games, I think Wiseman has a chance to maybe go off and have a close to 200-yard game, right? And that'll help boost stats and get him even closer to that. Playing Florida, the rest of the teams, I don't see anybody, playing maybe Kentucky. They have a front 4, but maybe able to run the ball on them too. So you're probably able to get enough yards to eclipse that 1,000-yard mark going forward. Because I don't see anybody else that can probably stop Texas' running game consistently.
When we had this discussion a lot right after Baxter got hurt, and even before then, we had this discussion about who's going to be the lead back. And there was thought that Blue would be that, and he would get that 1,000 yards based off of being able to bust a 60-yard run, and him having the best capability to do that, not only get to the 20 yards that are upfield, but the other 40 that where you're running by guys. That hadn't really played out. I don't know if he's had. I'm trying to think of what his long run is this year, but he hadn't had a big home run like that. He's had some good plays in the pass game, but I can't really recall a big home run play like that. And that's in addition to his reliability problems and ball security stuff. That's definitely eaten into his ability to do that. Maybe not on the quote unquote active roster. Would Baxter have been able to maybe get there with this O-line the way it looks like, Charlie?
Maybe he could be, right? Because he has the ability to break tackles and break those arm tackles. You kind of see it even versus Vandy. Trey and Blue, they tend to slip when somebody swipes at their legs. They almost lose balance. But Baxter's a little bigger back, a little sturdy. He probably run through a lot more arm tackles and get those yak yards. And so maybe he's able to break longer runs. I kind of saw him last year in the fourth and 1 versus Kansas State. He ran through an arm tackle and then went to the house because he just has that ability. So maybe he has longer runs. He breaks for longer runs and attains more yards that way. But it starts with the guys up front too. They have to be able to help these guys. And sometimes when the holes are there, they were missing them early on in the season. Maybe Baxter wouldn't because he's more of an experienced back who has more carries than both of those guys combined. But maybe Baxter hits it. I'm not sure because the O-line needs to be able to be more versatile and run more than outside zone.
O-line
I actually think that outside zone is better suited to the big power back because outside zone, the back ends up cutting against the grain. And so having the ability to run through arm tackles is kind of like what you want on that scheme. That's why like Arian Foster or all those big guys for the Broncos back in the day were so effective in it. Terrell Davis. They weren't even that fast. They were just like quick feet and big. And so Baxter would have been a better fit for outside zone. These smaller guys tend to do better with like the gap and counter stuff where they can threaten to bounce or find open space. If we want to
even Jordan Mason, like the guy who stood in for McCaffrey, like even he's been able to do that pretty well. And he fits that kind of bill. Scott in Texas, the O-line doesn't seem to be opening holes like they have previously. What happened? We've been saying for about 2 years that this isn't a group that's fantastic at just clearing a path. They're good laterally, but it's just not their strength. And I'm not saying that's like a bad thing. Like actually, never mind. It is a bad thing not to be able to open holes like that. But I think it's just a result of, what these guys' strengths are. Like Hayden Connors played his best football of his career in these past few weeks, I feel like. But at the same time, like he's just not a guy who's going to get pushed in the ground game like you would expect. I don't know why it's not happening with DJ Campbell. Like you would think that right side of the line would make things a lot easier. But that hasn't been the case.
There's only 2 games though where they've not been opening holes, which are Georgia. It's like that's Georgia,
Yeah.
Like, why couldn't they blow Georgia off the ball? Well, and then Vanderbilt is like the weird one. So we'll see, like Florida, Kentucky, Arkansas. If you can't get any push or get the right trades or open creases against those teams, this is gonna get sticky.
Ian, I think you had touched on this on the site this week. Do you think the complexity of the run blocking scheme is causing more broken assignments? Like we hear about how Sark says, like, the more things we can run well, the tougher it is for our opponents. There's a key word there. Run, 2 words, run well. Is that part of the problem? Is that they're trying to be jack of all trades, masters of none right now?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely looked like it against Vanderbilt when they were just not very good in the outside zone game. It's weird how much, like, Texas is one of the only teams you'll see where outside zone is supposed to be this big, have this big of a role in the scheme, while at the same time they're running all this other stuff. Like the Rams and the 49ers might have less in the run game than Sark and Flood do. Or at the very least, like wide zone is a bigger emphasis for them, and they run it more than as a bigger percentage of the offense than Texas. So that could be it. I don't really think so on holding. But also, I mean, they've been good at it this year. Like this Vanderbilt game, I don't want to leap to too many conclusions off just one game.
I think that's fair. And I used to be very partial to like the be a master of one thing. Like I like that idea. Like just if you can become great at inside zone, do that and just do it over and over, because you can still, I know it's a little bit more limited compared to RPOs off outside zone, but you can still do it. And it's just one of those things where at this point there's nothing that it feels like they're, I don't want to say grasping because it makes it sound like it's just this dire problem, but it's just like it's week to week. It's too uncertain. Like some weeks they'll be like, okay, we got this going. And then other weeks we got this going. I think you can also look at, remember who's been playing running back there. You have Bijan Robinson, who could turn a 3-yard loss into a 3-yard gain. Roshan Johnson, who could, fall forward every single time. Even Jonathan Brooks, running back 1 in the draft, and looks like he's going to be back healthy for the Panthers this week. Like those were guys who could find yards. Few others could. And Wisner and Blue, I don't think are there yet.
Good point.
So I think that's a big part of it. And yeah, Drew Kelson, there you go. But weren't there some stats about like yards before contact with Bijan that you compared that to what his like yards per carry were, and it was like 3 or 4, or yards before like contacted in the backfield or something like that. Like he had something crazy where he would get touched in the backfield and then still get like a 5-yard gain.
Yeah, it was special.
I think
Sheesh.
he would have he did a lot. I think we see now, and even with Brooks, like we appreciate what those guys were able to do just by when they weren't there. We'll go back to the passing game because I like this comment from Peoples. Last year, deep balls were many times AD Mitchell. Contested catches. Don't see a dog like that this year. Allows Quinn to have a decent deep pass that can work. I mean, Matthew Golden kind of fits this bill.
He does.
Moore has pulled in multiple slot fades in the end zone.
Yeah.
Bond has been their most effective guy over the top. He maybe doesn't even have the best hands. I don't think it's that.
Gunnar Helm.
Gunnar Helm.
He's been posting up on people.
Yeah.
You know what they
Go ahead.
You know what we haven't seen that was probably there against Vanderbilt is the back shoulder fade. Like it's really hard to defend that from any coverage, but when you're like trying to keep the guy in front of you and then the quarterback throws it just under you, it's just either the quarterback can throw it and he can catch it or not. And as a defender, there's really not that much you can do about it. And that's not been a big part of the repertoire. I wonder what it would look like if Ewers was throwing those.
Well,
that's a good point.
I think we all kind of talk about how Ewers is like this finesse quarterback, and I get that. He's got to throw with zip, and that one route to Gunnar Helm that everybody's like, oh, Matthew Golden's open. True. Not applicable. But that one route to Helm, he needs to be able to do that more often. And I get he's good at layering throws and stuff like that, but like you got to get some opportunities for him to just zip it in there because he has the capability to throw it through those windows, and that's what a back shoulder fade would have probably encouraged him to do. So there's a little bit of improvement for everybody. Before we keep on going, got to show love to our other sponsor, that is Andre the Lawyer.
This video is brought to you by Andre the Lawyer. If you're injured, trust the team that secured millions for their clients and helped thousands of Texans with their injury case. Car wrecks, slip and falls, 18-wheeler accidents, on-the-job injuries, and wrongful deaths. Don't let insurance tell you what your claim is worth. Hire Andre the Lawyer to fight for you. Principal office is in Dallas, but they serve Texans throughout the state. So don't wait and call Andre the Lawyer today at 214-444-8808. That's 214-444-8808. The contact information is in the description.
Thank you to LC and Andre, of course. Did either of y'all have any big takeaways from snap counts that I was able to unearth with Pro Football Focus, whether on offense or defense?
I have not seen them.
Yeah, I know you posted it. I need to read it.
Can you tell us some of the interesting stuff, and we'll.
A lot of it reveals what we know, and that's what numbers and stats do. I think there's essential personnel. The essential personnel on defense are Taff, Barron, Gilbo, Hill, Muhammad. A little bit of, switching around everywhere. They still rotate at defensive tackle like they did when they had draft picks, like they did when they had All-Americans. And then on offense, this 6 deep wide receiver core that we talked about, it's 4 deep. It's Wingo, it's Golden, it's Moore, it's Bond.
Yeah.
Offensive line being what it is. You kind of got to see what the depth chart appears to look like based off some of the, garbage time snaps and things like that. As far as other essential personnel on offense, Gunnar Helm obviously is in that group. Any of that stand out? Is there like a defensive guy you're surprised wasn't in there?
What are the percentages of snaps for like Broughton and Collins versus Lole and Norton?
Give me 1 second. Broughton and Collins have been on Collins 286, Broughton 283, Lole 207, Norton 106. Norton is their I don't know. I was about to say he's their base nose, but
Yeah.
it seems like they've been pretty willing to slide one of Broughton or Collins over and then just bring in Lole for the other 4i. And that's a testament to Lole. I think how have y'all seen Charlie? Like, we kind of waited on one of those transfer defensive tackles to do a little bit of something, and
Yeah.
it seems like Jermaine Lole has finally heeded the call.
Yeah. Have you heard his name the last few games, man? He stepped up his play. You know, so yeah, like you said, you're waiting on one transfer guy to pan out, and like he's been consistent the last few games, really making splash plays and showing up. And, you know, getting penetration, getting pressure on the quarterback, and really playing the run game well. He's getting off blocks really well, really fast, and so yeah, he stepped up. Maybe they can see the difference between his snaps and Norton's. And Norton's a big plugger guy, two gap guy. They really haven't played anybody except maybe Georgia who can try to just run at them or try to anyway. Versus they needed more speed, especially playing down the line, like playing Vanderbilt last week. You need somebody who can kind of move down the line and play quicker versus just plugging. So maybe that's the reason, but maybe they're just Norton's specialty. You know what I mean? You need him on goal line. How many people have reached the goal line versus Texas? Not many. So you don't need him as much, right? He's a situational big guy.
He's good at that. That's all I was going to say.
One of the things that we got to think about is that we're probably going to see Lole start against Florida. And I think he started against Michigan because Michigan was going to get into like a big set. And so they were going to go with the, 3 defensive tackle look. But Lole, with Broughton out for the targeting, they're going to need him for a half against Florida. And I'm curious how that might, looking a little bit ahead, how that might be something that helps or hurts Texas against the Florida offense.
Hey, Joe.
What's
up? Can you see the snap counts for Oklahoma defensive linemen easily?
If you give me like 30 seconds to what's some of the data you're looking for? Are you looking for Dominic Williams?
I want to see Dominic Williams, who has the exact same number of tackles for loss as Jermaine Lole, which is 2.5.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Oh man, we always got to bring it back that route, don't we? Okay.
And they have almost the exact same stats in terms of tackles for loss, and sacks.
All right.
Jermaine Lole, I believe you said Lole had played like 206 snaps.
Dominic Williams is at 265.
Oh, interesting.
And among defensive linemen for Oklahoma, that leads.
That was such a coup where they went all in to get Williams and then lost Lole, who cost, I don't know the figures, but maybe half as much, and has been giving Texas as much as Williams has given Oklahoma.
Who won the great defensive tackle auction or bidding war, whatever you want to call it, of 2024? I think I might have found something to go over this weekend.
Yeah.
Or maybe even today.
Texas won. Well, against Oklahoma. It seems like Oregon, we lost freaking, who's that? Houston.
The U of H one.
Yeah.
Jamari Caldwell.
Caldwell. Mm-hmm.
He would have been nice.
The real big one, I thought the prize of that portal cycle was the guy who went to Miami. I think it's like, what was his name? Simeon Barrow?
The Michigan State kid, right?
Michigan State somehow had 2 great defensive
tackles. The other one has not been that great at Oregon.
The more slight one?
No, Barrow's the slight one. The big one went to Oregon. The big one went to Oregon. And if you watch Chauncey's
Harmon, that's the better
Harmon.
No, Harmon has not been that good.
Really?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Boise was pushing him around.
He's been he's their snap leader, 297. Pro Football Focus thinks a little different, but that is whatever you want to make of it.
Well, I think he was better against Ohio State, and he may have been better since. but he was not great against Boise State.
He was a tank against Ohio State. That's his best game of the year.
Yeah, that was his best
Really?
game. He showed up.
That doesn't surprise me because they played it well in that one.
Yeah.
I really liked Harmon. I liked him. I like Dominic. I probably went like Harmon, Williams, Barrow, Norton, kind of at the time.
Yeah.
And now I think we're kind of seeing that, you know, we all kind of drove up what we thought we drove up their impact just because of their scarcity, and I think we addressed that at the time, but also it's just one of those things where they were in the portal for a reason.
Yeah.
Anything else, or do you want to go over what's going on in the SEC this week?
Yeah. Let's see what else.
Let's
See
do
what else
it.
is going on.
All right, let me find it. This week in the SEC, got a rivalry game. Big pressure on those two guys.
Yeah.
Here we go. Ole Miss at Arkansas, 6.5-point favorite. Have y'all seen? It's an 11 a.m. game. Did y'all see Lane complaining about not getting night games at home? I know this is a road game, but did y'all see Lane talking about, like, why do we keep having to go play at Tiger Stadium at night and everybody comes here and gets to play at the Rebels at 11 a.m.?
Yeah, I caught this little snippet of him saying that. I don't know. Lane's gonna be Lane.
I think he's got a point. And looking at the TV stuff, like ESPN has an 11 a.m. and then SEC Network has 11:45, and then they want ABC. Like they want these big games on at night, and I guess Ole Miss just hasn't gotten them at home. But looking at this one, Ole Miss at Arkansas, I'm kind of surprised Ole Miss is a 6.5-point favorite. I feel like it might be a little bit. I think that number is too big, honestly.
Yeah. For me, it's which Taylor Green shows up for Arkansas. If he shows up and he's balling, then I got Arkansas winning that one. But we really just don't know because he's kind of up and down. But we'll see.
I'm sure like Monday, Tuesday next week, I'm just gonna be writing up Texas bye week Texas future opponents and how they played while Texas was on bye. And so I've not really gotten good eyes on Arkansas yet. I don't have a great feel for them, and this game is gonna be a really helpful barometer for me in measuring them.
One of the big like national conversations about college football is like, can you portal an offensive line? And like, Colorado is the main place where people are talking about that. But Arkansas did it too. And 5-3. I mean, that went over Tennessee, and that could be 6-2 if they had gotten things right with Texas A&M. Like, Sam Pittman knows what he's doing. How does Arkansas win this game?
I'm going to say ball control, almost like Kentucky did. If they can run the ball, the running backs are healthy. Taylor's doing pretty good, not turning the ball over. Arkansas has a pretty good, solid defense. They can just play ball control versus Ole Miss, shorten the possessions down for them. I think they got a chance. Plus, they're playing at home, so they have the crowd, and we know that crowd's a little ruckus in Fayetteville. So I think that's how they win the game.
Does Ole Miss have like a good rush defense?
Yeah, they have. Nolan is the actual prize portal D tackle.
Yeah.
It's just that nobody even got in on that because Ole Miss was all over it from the beginning.
Yeah, and then speaking of the other guy, Overton, who went from A&M to Bama, has done pretty well. But yeah, I feel like if Arkansas wins this, it'll be low scoring, and if Ole Miss wins this, it'll be like 38-17, something like that. Let's go to Hugh Freeze's nightmare. Vanderbilt at Auburn. Auburn 7.5 kind of makes sense. They need another Pavia game. I mean, I feel like that's the way they figure it out.
You know what? But Vanderbilt lives off other teams making mistakes, and Auburn makes a ton. So that's
Sure.
yeah. I don't see how Auburn's favored in this. Isn't Thorne's not playing this game, right? He's out, right? He's hurt.
I didn't even have to look at the
That
injury
may help
report
him.
thing.
You know, he'll give a few turnovers. So if he's not playing, maybe it could be a reason why. But I trust Vandy to bounce back versus Auburn, just because they turn the ball over too much.
Thorne is not on the injury report.
Okay,
so I think he'll be fine. And then looking at Vanderbilt, none of their big three are out or on the report. So
Pavia is clearly accumulating injuries, though.
Yeah.
Yes,
he is.
that I agree with. And we saw that play out with. I know he talks about how he idolizes Johnny Manziel, but he plays a lot more like Sam Ehlinger does.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hey, like I mentioned on one of these shows the other day, Brian Harson's record when he got fired from Auburn was 9-12. Hugh Freeze's record at Auburn right now is 9-12. So, yeah, I like that mistake thing. I think that makes a lot of sense. Let's see. Maine at Oklahoma. I looked this up just to see if Maine is obviously the Dakotas and the Montanas are the class of FCS. If you weren't aware, North Dakota State, South Dakota State, and then Montana and Montana State. Those teams have kind of separated themselves in the FCS as the elite tier. After that, there's kind of a weird middle. Villanova's been up there. Sometimes an HBCU, I think, gets up there, but there hasn't been an elite HBCU. Same thing goes for the Ivies. So Maine is not they're not going to be in the FCS tournament. This isn't a good FCS team. It's an average FCS team. And yet you still wonder.
Oh, man.
I think Oklahoma will turn them over 7 times because Maine's not used to getting blitzed or hit like Oklahoma's going to hit them, and that should be enough.
I wonder if they play both quarterbacks. I bet they will. They'll probably be able to.
Joe, you'll like this. I heard from some kids with more TAPS level experience in the Texas high school football that some of their friends played against Highland Park, and they were like, that was very different. Everybody on Highland Park hit 100 times harder than anyone in our league. I think that's what's going to happen to Maine.
Yeah. I mean, my St. Thomas stinks this year, but they went to the TAPS finals. Parrish has good players. John Paul too. They got good players. But they don't have the team depth, and especially at a place like Highland Park where even someone going to Tulsa is different than the guy who's playing football and has got to study for the chemistry exam tomorrow. It's different, and that's, I think, a good comparison for what we're going to see. The Black Bears versus the Sooners. Cocktail party.
Yeah.
Last one in Jacksonville for a couple of years while they redo the stadium. 16.5. Going to see Lagway, and I hope Mr. Lagway is ready for what might be heading his way. Is there a path to victory for Florida here?
Carson Beck just likes to throw to the other team, maybe, and keeps them in the game. That may be the only way. Maybe they try to take some of what Alabama did. I know they're going to try to run Lagway, maybe like Milroe did. Maybe they got athletes, but if Georgia doesn't turn the ball over, I don't see a chance for Florida.
Florida cannot turn the ball over.
Yeah,
they've been a lot better on defense recently, right?
Yeah,
is the word
playing decent football.
Their boy wonder defensive coordinators finally got them figuring out what they're supposed to be doing. This is another one where I have not watched a ton of Florida, and I'm going to use this weekend to start to get a better gauge for what Texas is facing.
I think the difference between Florida and Alabama is like their lines aren't comparable on offense.
Right.
Quarterbacks similarities. There's no Ricky Pearsall. There's no Ryan Williams. There's no like receiver that Georgia probably really has to worry about. Heck, I don't even know if there's a running back, and if there was, he's playing for Georgia right now.
Do you keep Napier if he gets to 6 wins?
Ooh.
I was listening to one of the big national podcasts, and I think it was kind of viewed in context of Florida. Like, if you're Florida, you're going to want a team, you're going to want a coach who's doing good things. So that means the playoff. Well, that runs into like January or late December. Like the schedule of the carousel is so different now. Oh yeah, you got to find a place in the athletic department to pay these kids $22 million starting July 1st, 2025. Like, I think maybe not necessarily at Florida, but like across the board, you're going to see maybe an extra year of patience and then maybe an early trigger early next year.
Yep, I think so too.
Well, and here's another thing. Like, what if Lagwage like jumps in the portal at all, then I'm like, okay, what's the future here?
Right.
And then you start over. Kind of looking at Florida, appreciate it, AR. What would you look for in Florida when they do play Texas? You did mention that you're going to use this weekend to get some more info on them, but anything off the top? I mean, Lagway is what's going to draw everybody's attention, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely Lagway, what they're asking him to do and how effective he is in it. And then that feels like it's like, are you going to beat Texas this year with DJ Lagway, freshman quarterback? Probably not. That part feels good, but you want to see what he's capable of and what he's doing.
Yeah.
The Florida defense and how they're playing pass defense is the big one. Because I know they have some big guys. They have like some 400-pound tackles that they rotate up front. They're hard to run on. They're hard to move. They got Princely, who's probably going to be looking to – is he injured?
He's at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Duh. Oh, even better then. They've got whoever's playing edge for them now. I want to see, what their pass defense and secondary looks like. If it's really good, then it could be a tight game. And if it still has issues, then between that and Lagway, you would think Texas is going to be favored big.
Yeah.
I feel like we can skip UMass at Mississippi State.
Well-deserved
Yeah.
chance of victory for Bulldogs.
That'll be I think UMass is joining the MAC next year, so we won't have to worry about teams playing them in the middle of the year. And one thing just before we get to A&M, where is it? Ryan Nelson had it. Georgia's second loss, if it happened next week, will be in Oxford. Only be about a 2.5-point favorite, and that pairs well with UT Parkning. Rooting for chaos, rooting for Arkansas, South Carolina, Florida, and Kentucky. Yeah, Texas needs to obviously keep winning, but they also need all those one-loss teams or zero-loss teams in one case to start racking up losses because the tiebreakers, we kind of talked about it on Inside Texas on the board yesterday. We'll probably have some content on it later today. 16 teams with only one team playing 7 or 8 of them, like it just creates a lot of different chaos. And the Big Ten is going to be worse if it comes to bear for that. Texas A&M at South Carolina. Charlie, which quarterback you starting?
I'm going Reed. I don't think Wigman wants to face that South Carolina D-line. These are essentially like the exact same teams, man. Like a dominating front four, offense, running quarterbacks who are still trying to figure it out, it seems. But South Carolina playing at home, man. If they don't turn the ball over and they're able to play well, I think they really have a chance to beat A&M, but I'm playing Reed as my quarterback. I think he just gives A&M a way better chance of winning. I want to see him throw the ball more, but I want to see what he does. He has a chance to escape from that pressure that South Carolina's going to bring Saturday.
I'm really curious on. I mean, like you said, I think A&M and South Carolina are similar. I think A&M's got a little bit more talent, but they have a lot of the same strengths.
Yeah.
And another thing is, I know it's not something we're probably familiar with, but Williams-Brice Stadium at night is supposed to be a real tough place to play. And the team hasn't always lived up to the environment, but they get pretty rowdy there at Willie B. If y'all have seen the movie, I know I mentioned it on here before. Have y'all have seen the movie The Program?
Yeah.
They filmed it there.
Yeah.
Ian, you have to watch it. Like,
please.
Yeah, I'll try to find it. Is that the one where they're like the one scary dude? They're like, "What's your assignment?" And he's like, "Kill the tight end."
Yes.
Kill the quarterback. Kill everybody.
That's it.
Yes, that's where Kill Everybody's from. There's a character in there who looks very much and acts very much, has a lot of similarities to a former Texas defensive end. You know what I'm talking about, don't you, Charlie?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Dang, that's a good one.
I think A&M wins it, but I want to see Reed have to go through some adversity and maybe pass the ball to know more about the Aggies. And that's a rivalry somehow. Like they have it like a trophy for it because that used to be their cross-division rival. Yeah, rivalry game in Columbia. Last one, Kentucky at Tennessee. Ian, anything on this one?
I think this one's going to be really tough for Tennessee. 16.5 is crazy. I think people are like, Kentucky has struggled to defend Tennessee in the past, but Tennessee's passing game has not quite been there this year. And I think this is going to be a lot tougher than 16.5 for them, even at home.
The one thing about Kentucky is they've had not just red zone, goal line failures over the past few games. Like,
they're not great.
No. And I think, are they still kind of doing the we may or may not start Brock Vandegrift thing?
Oh, I didn't know about that.
I didn't know about that one.
I think I'll have to look that up. I thought there may have been we'll see if he's the quarterback going forward. He's not on the injury thing. But I think it's just a bad situation. They're ready for basketball season. And as I should be with a team like that. So, well, made it through the bye. Just got a few more days left, but make sure we will be here on Inside Texas, keeping you up to date. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. We'll have a lot more over the course of this weekend. And of course, head to InsideTexas.com. We'll be waiting for you. The link is in the description. Thank you to our sponsors. Charlie, Ian, thank you. And we'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com.